Hey everyone, PayPal stock has been an interesting one for at least all of 2023. I've recommended it as one of my top stocks to buy all year, and I own PayPal stock too. Now, the valuation has felt like it's been cheap all year long, but that being said, the stock price hasn't moved that much higher all year long. So it has a lot of investors asking, where is PayPal stock going to go, right? So I thought I'd make this video giving you just the potential of where PayPal stock could be 2 years from now. So let's take a look at that, and let's take a look at the assumptions I'm going to use to make that estimate of where PayPal stock could be 2 years from now.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
Okay, so here I have pulled up PayPal's estimated growth for the next 2 years, fiscal year 2024 and 2025. I have here the revenue forecast and the earnings per share forecast for those 2 years. So according to a consensus of analysts that cover the stock, they expect PayPal's revenue to grow to 32 billion next year and then 34.9 billion the year after that, accelerating revenue growth, right? Because that would be from 7.6% to 8.3% growth to 8.7% growth. That's a key. Let's put a star around that. The next thing I'm going to use here is earnings per share. Analysts expect earnings per share to increase from $4.95 to $5.54 to $6.18. So this $6.18 figure is the key figure I'm going to use for my estimate of what PayPal stock price could be 2 years from now. So at the end date here, December 2025, that's a key figure to keep in mind. So the next figure I'm going to look at is PayPal's forward price to earnings ratio of 11.03. Let's keep that figure in mind, okay? Keep that one in mind. And then let's also look at PayPal's non-forward price to earnings, just the regular price to earnings, which is backward looking and not forward looking. So looking at this figure, you can see PayPal's price to earnings ratio is arguably near cheaper than it's ever been at 18.46 going back 5 years. Let's go back 5 instead of 3 years. Yeah, it's about as cheap as it's been. It used to trade at a price to earnings closer to 60, and then it fell in 2022 as economies reopened and PayPal's prospects worsened, and the valuation has just continued to get cheaper. And that's why so many investors are interested in PayPal stock. So many investors like myself keep saying the stock is undervalued, but it's been undervalued and it keeps getting more undervalued, and the stock just doesn't move higher. Now, there are reasons for that. Let me show you that. But let's keep in mind this price to earnings valuation going back several years, okay? And then let's look at why PayPal stock has been cheap and stays cheap, right? One of the reasons is because of this active decline in active accounts from 435 million at Q4 2022 down to 433 to 431. And that was going down by 2 million. And then the losses increased to nearly 3 million down to 428 million. So it's this streak of losing monthly active users, which are the key to the business. That's the core of the business. And that's one reason why investors are hesitant about PayPal stock. Another reason is that the profit margins are falling as well, the transaction profit margin. Okay, so there are reasons why the stock is undervalued. There are some elevated risks, including competition, that's creating this kind of streak of losing monthly active users and decreasing transaction profit margin. All right, so here I have some estimates for PayPal, and let's take a look at each row on its own, right? So remember that $6.18 figure I told you to remember? That was the analyst consensus estimate for what they think PayPal's earnings per share will be in 2025. Okay, so that's the figure I'm going to use to calculate a price to earnings for PayPal stock, right? So right now I showed you that PayPal's forward price to earnings ratio was 11, but historically PayPal's price to earnings ratio has been higher. So I have here also several different scenarios where we're going to use PayPal price to earnings of 11, 15, 20, and 25. And So what we're going to do to get the market price estimate of what the stock price could be at 2025, we're going to take the earnings per share and multiply it by the price to earnings. That's how you get the market price estimate. So if PayPal stock remains at a price to earnings of 11 and it grows its earnings per share to $6.18, the stock price could be $68 by December of 2025. But if PayPal's multiple was to increase to 15, then the market price could be $93 per share. But if PayPal's stock price was to be valued at a price to earnings of 20, the stock price could be $124 per share. And finally, if the price to earnings multiple was to increase to 25, then the market stock price could be $154 per share, which would be a significant increase from where PayPal's stock price is trading today. Now, remember when we look back historically, PayPal's valuation has been higher than all of these multiples that I have listed here. So you could argue that these are conservative estimates, or you could argue that these are too optimistic, that PayPal is never going to trade at this kind of multiple again. Well, that remains to be seen. We don't know yet what price to earnings will be for PayPal stock ending 2025. But one of the good things is if PayPal does achieve that accelerating growth rate, that will have a positive effect on PayPal's price to earnings multiple. When companies are growing the second derivative, I've talked about this on my channel, if you remember, the second derivative. So not just the growth rate of revenue, but the rate of growth rate of revenue, if that's increasing, right? So I showed you it went from 6% to 8% to 9%. So the rate of growth is also increasing. That's a positive characteristic. Investors are willing to pay a premium for companies that demonstrate that. Another thing to look out for is PayPal operates in a business model that benefits from network effects. The more people it has on the platform, the more PayPal benefits, because the more people are using PayPal, the more merchants want to accept PayPal as a payment method. The more merchants accept PayPal as a payment method, the more people are going to want to use PayPal, and on and on and on. It benefits from that positive virtuous cycle. So if it makes progress on that front and reverses those losses in monthly active accounts, that could also play a role in increasing that price to earnings multiple. I would not be surprised if as soon as PayPal reverses those monthly active user declines, where instead of falling, it stops falling and it starts rising for consecutive quarters, and investors feel confident that PayPal is no longer on this downward trend. I wouldn't be surprised if the multiple increases right after that fact, right after they prove that they are no longer in decline. So these are just some of the factors that will impact this valuation multiple. That is just based on investor psychology. How much investors are willing to pay for a business is based on the business's characteristics, right? And so those are some of the things that will improve the multiple. So we can see why there's so many people that think PayPal stock is undervalued, and hopefully PayPal stock over the next 2 years will grow to reach this market price estimate that we have here. I certainly hope so as a shareholder myself, and if you're a shareholder, I think you hope so too. Did you know that over 90% of the people that watch my channel are not subscribed? It'll really help support my channel if you hit that subscribe button. And oh, by the way, one of the benefits of being subscribed is that I take requests from subscribers more often than I do from non-subscribers. So if you prefer that benefit, please subscribe to the channel.